Is that a white hair? Oh my gosh. Am I getting white hairs after turning almost 2 decades old? So technically, I'm not 2 decades old yet. As I said, almost 20-year-old. I hope not. I think I saw white hair the other day and I wanted to scream. I love white hair, don't get me wrong. But just not right now. No, thank you. I'm gonna be that lady that's rocking her full head of white hair, but at the right time. Anyways, hello, welcome. If you are new to Deep Talks with Lila, Shower Thoughts. I changed my mind. It's now called Shower Thoughts. This is a new series. This is not... Okay. So, as you can tell, this video is in the car, and it's very different from what my typical filming setup and everything. This video is not scripted. Like the other ones that I usually post, those ones are very heavily scripted because I want to give away the most value as I possibly can, and I want to make it worth your time. And obviously, I want to make these videos worth your time too. But the difference is, this is basically a sub-series, which is going to be all about talking about things that people don't open up about in person. As a college student, when I go outside, some of the conversations I have with people are just so incredibly surface level, and so I want to kind of get away from that and talk about shit that people don't talk about in person. One of those topics today is celibacy. Today I wanted to get into why I practice celibacy as somebody that is almost 2 decades old now, why I choose to stick to this even though I live in a first world country and I have my freedom of choice and will to do whatever I want, and I know that there are other people out there who feel this exact way, but they just don't know how to articulate it. I still don't know how to articulate it, but I'm gonna try my best to convey some of those thoughts in this video. If you are coming from the old videos, welcome back to the channel. If you are new, welcome. My name is Lila, and today we're gonna start a brand new series of hopefully making conversations like this a little bit less stigmatized. So for context, I am 19 years old, and I'm aiming to practice celibacy for as long as I can. I don't really know when to stop. Oh my god, why is this awkward? Okay, I get why people don't want to open up about this stuff. It's not that I don't want to open up, it's just I don't know where to start to explain my thought process, because everybody's reasons are probably different. Your reasons are probably different from mine for practicing or not practicing. Yeah, let's start off with the fact that this video is not about me hating on men. We will get to that later. I mean, yes, I've met my fair share of egregious, horrid men in this life so far, but there are other reasons, deeper reasons, I would say, for not wanting to engage in any type of relationships right now. My basic philosophy in life is that sex equals children. And no, this was not like drilled into my head from a young age. It makes sense. Based off of my childhood experiences, I'm just very conscious of having children. If you're ready to do the deed, then you should also be ready to potentially take on the responsibility of another human being, because that's what having a child is doing. Oh man, is that scary? I don't even know where to begin with how that makes me feel. I'm Gen Z, right? And Gen Z apparently is not having kids. The oldest of us is only 27 right now, but so far, I'm pretty sure statistics are saying that not a lot of us have kids, and rightfully so, because in this economy and in this world, before even thinking about men or anything, like I think about the consequences of my actions, right? The effect that it can have on your potential children, and that also affects you, of course. I know that there are contraceptives and a whole bunch of new stuff available. We're not living in like the 1800s, I get it, but at the same time, okay, I hate this angle. Wait, one sec. No matter how careful you are, there's always still a chance, right? Imagine taking on that much responsibility, potentially, for a child. It just scares me. Does this not scare anybody else? Am I the only one who feels this way? Because anytime I bring this up, anytime I bring up celibacy, people often assume it's because I have some issue with like men not finding any of my type or having too many high standards or stuff like that. But in reality, it's about kids. That's the biggest reason for me. I don't want to even think about the possibility of having a child right now. That scares the living shit out of me. And I know some people might be up for having children at a very young age, but maybe it's that I overthink things a lot, or maybe it's that I care too deeply about having a child because I see it as the biggest responsibility in the entire world. Again, having to do most likely with my childhood. You know what? I'm gonna come back to the child thing. I do want to emphasize that yes, I grew up in like a religious household and these values were instilled in me, but I don't have to practice any of this if I don't want to, and I still want to. In fact, the older I'm getting, the more I'm wanting to practice this value like on my own. And it's crazy because if I hadn't been introduced to this before, I probably would have gone down the route of like hookup culture and I would have gotten my heart broken or would have broken somebody else's. I'm pretty sure that this has saved me from making a lot of mistakes that I would have regretted. I know I said I wouldn't talk about men being, you know, egregious and incapable and whatever, but okay, maybe just a little bit. So I'm in college, and right now the guys around me are just on a whole different level. It feels like the girls and the guys are living in two different worlds. A lot of guys my age are not in a position to date whatsoever. That's just, yeah. I always rely on a script to be able to string a coherent sentence together, just one, but we're gonna have to do without it today. One of the arguments against celibacy I always hear from people is that you need experience. Experience with like relationships, with, you know, I just don't agree with that. I think you can learn so much about relationship dynamics, about people, and how you're supposed to treat each other in a relationship from other people's relationships and from other people's mistakes. I don't believe that you directly have to engage in one yourself in order to know how to be a good partner. I don't believe you have to get your heart broken like 20 times or break somebody else's just to learn how to be a good partner or get experience. I think that's a lie that's fueling hookup culture. No matter how many times I'm surrounded by people who are sleeping around, by the way, if you are, I'm not judging you. I'm just saying that I grew up here, but I don't agree with these values, and my mindset is very like firm when it comes to this stuff. My main purpose with this video today is to really just question like, why do you practice celibacy or why do you not? I'm interested to hear both perspectives, and even a middle perspective if there is one. Like, I'm really curious because I see it all the time around me in school, but then when you talk to older people, they kind of have the opposite to say. They often regret it. They often regret sleeping around. They regret engaging in hookup culture, and I just find it so interesting. So something else that was on my mind, like I said, I mentioned that I think of sex as having children, to always just be prepared for that happening just in case, right? What I'm curious about is if you do not practice celibacy, like, would you feel comfortable taking on that level of a risk? Because to me, not practicing celibacy or like even getting into a relationship at this age comes with like so many risks and opportunity costs. Like, despite being a hormonal teenager and having needs and desires, I am really scared to take on that level of risk. For people my age, I want to know, how do you do it? When you're really young, at this age, the one thing I have realized in the past year or two is that this is essentially like the building stage. 17, 18, 19, 20. These are your prime years to kind of get your shit together. This is when you're let loose into the world, or are supposed to be. You get to experiment and try new things and set yourself up basically for success in the future. And so talking about the opportunity costs I mentioned, getting into a relationship, again, as much as I would want to, I am not opposed to getting into a relationship per se, being a hormonal teenager, but it's just so hard to justify it when you're kind of like building up. You know, when you're entering your 20s, most of us are expected to be broke in our 20s. Under 25, your frontal lobe has not developed at this age. Like, there's a lot of shit going on at this age, you know? This is the age, or a part of the ages, as in this continues on, extends even into your early 20s, I think, where you're trying to get your shit together. You're trying to find stability in your life, mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, spiritually, in all these different ways. You know, I really pondered over this for a long time, and I just came to the conclusion that it does not make any sense to be in a relationship at this age. I do definitely want to like have everything together. Like, I'm that type of person who wants to have everything together before I take on a risk or engage in any sort of relationship. But I also find it insane how when you get into a relationship, you don't have the luxury to just think about yourself anymore. Every decision you make is now a decision for two. And that is scary. let me tell you, taking on the responsibility of another partner, the reason why so many young relationships and like young love doesn't last isn't because those people aren't in love or they don't care about each other, but rather that they're not ready to be taking care of another person. Because when you get into a relationship, you have to think about another person's feelings, emotions, life decisions. You're kind of responsible for too. And I think that's why it doesn't work a lot of the times. I'm not talking about being scared of commitment. I get that when you get into a relationship, you are, maybe this is being scared of commitment. It's just such a confusing age to be in because it's like you're an adult, but also how much of an adult are you really is actually insane to me. How big of a risk relationships are, like when you really think about them. But at the same time, like, am I missing out on something? Like, am I supposed to be doing this at this age? Because I don't think I am, you know? I don't think I'm losing anything by focusing on myself. Basically, what I'm doing is taking all that time and energy that I could be spending on sleeping around with other people and putting it into myself and seeing where that takes me in life. I also truly believe that, like, going back to that, the whole topic about having a child, based off of my own childhood experiences, I want to be able to give parenthood, like if I do have a kid, I want to be able to give it my 100%. And I'm gonna be honest with you, parents who don't take care of themselves, as in who have kids at the wrong time in their lives, who are clearly not ready for it, end up becoming a burden on their children's shoulders. They end up only bringing pain and suffering into the lives of others. And understanding this has given me such a different perspective on life and on parenthood, and it's made me so afraid of it too. There are some mistakes you can make in life that you can like get away from, fix your life from, but you can't like undo having a kid, you know? That's the one thing that you have to be really serious about. By the way, the reason I'm so scared about having kids, despite having all these like birth control methods available, is because I had a really horrible experience of being on birth control, being prescribed birth control. Despite not being sexually active, I was prescribed birth control at, I think, 16 for my period because those are really painful. And it ended up doing like crazy stuff to my body, to my hormones. My body did not feel the same. I was bleeding the entire month. And so that's made me really afraid. Like, I do not want to take contraceptives. Don't get me wrong, I am not writing off birth control. I recognize birth control has helped tons of women with painful periods, PCOS, to live a better life. But considering this was my first exposure to birth control ever, plus the medical gaslighting that came with it, I'm gonna do a whole video on medical gaslighting because it's absolutely outrageous. But my symptoms were so bad that I had to call my doctor from school at 16 years old. And even then, she just dismissed my concerns and told me to stick it out right in the middle of exams. And this is not an isolated experience. There are so many other women that have gone through this every single day. They repeatedly go through this with gynecologists, and it's horrible. So my main issues with birth control are A, the lack of research and funding being put towards women's health even today. B, the fact that women are still expected to bear the brunt of it, and the side effects. There was a birth control study going on for men in 2016, I think, and it was put to a halt because the men couldn't tolerate the side effects. The same side effects that many women experience every single day on birth control. Now, there were other issues with that study as well, but I just find the double standard so interesting, and it's honestly such a turnoff that it makes me want to stay celibate. 3, the biggest one is that doctors are handing it out like candy. Instead of doing their due diligence to conduct tests in advance to figure out what the side effects would look like in the individual, I recently found out they can do DNA tests for things like antidepressants and anxiety meds to predict potential side effects they would have on the specific person before they take the pill. So who's to say they can't do the same for birth control? In my experience, doctors just brushed over the fact that birth control affects different women differently. You can't neglect to share that information with your patient. Like, for some women, it helps them, while for others, it hurts them, especially if they are put on the wrong one. I see a lot of carelessness, so much neglect, even today in the healthcare system, at least like where I am in Canada. I've been to doctors in Pakistan and Canada, and I experienced it in both of those places. I know I am not the only one who's had horrible experiences with doctors where being a little bit more diligent, putting in more research and time into women's health could prevent so many problems and make our lives in general so much better. So after all of this stuff, it's very frustrating and it makes me want to stay celibate. I'm really curious again to know where people are in their lives and what you think if you're 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, or even if you have more life experience. Like, what did you end up doing or are doing with your life, and like why? I also believe that you can't plan out your life to the dot, nor should you. You should be open to spontaneity, and life will lead you down, different pathways regardless of what you plan or envision for yourself. But at the same time, even to make the most of those spontaneous moments, you have to really plan or do something with your life, For a relationship to not crash or burn, like, you guys need to be, like, in the same place mentally. Prepping for a relationship, I was never given a talk on this about preparing for a relationship mentally, physically, emotionally, financially. People just kind of expect you to figure it out. As you can see, I'm in this stage of like figuring it out right now. I would rather like die than have children and not be able to provide for them properly, mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, spiritually, take care of that, meet their needs, more than their needs. Like, let's be honest, we need to be doing more than the bare minimum. That stuff was so normalized with previous generations, but with us, I think this is also why a lot of us want to wait until we have kids, if we do decide to have them, because like, we don't want to put them through a lot of the same things that we had to grow up with. There's this quote, give a man a fish, feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, feed him for a lifetime. I think about these words a lot, like a lot, every single day pretty much. This really applies to like relationships. Like, providing for your children is just the absolute bare minimum. Putting a roof over a kid's head or giving them food on the table, like, that's just the bare minimum that you're supposed to do as a parent. What you really give to your children, the gifts that you give them in life, are like being able to equip them with the tools and the mindsets to be able to take care of themselves, right? Even if you were gone, like, as a parent, if you're no longer able to take care of them, they should still be able to take care of themselves, right? Your kids. I think at 19, you don't have the capacity to be able to do that. And not to mention that as I'm getting older and older, I'm kind of getting to that age where, the rishta aunties start being problematic and giving you the eye, and for my South Asian girlies, you know what I'm talking about. The proposals and the proposal talk and the marriage talk. It's really freaking annoying. Oh, and the biggest point I forgot to mention, like, sex being a soul contract, it's kind of a big deal. I cannot even imagine myself, like, going into it, with somebody that I, kind of moderately like or potentially see in my life, but I'm not really sure about it. When I was like 12, 13, 14, and I saw like the girls in my grade finally getting boyfriends, I definitely wanted one. I felt that pang of jealousy. It kind of felt like those girls had this cute, expensive accessory that I did not, and I really wanted it. But as I'm getting older now, I'm just realizing that, okay, that's not what I want. The benefits do not outweigh the cons. It's not a casual thing by any means. I think it's a really big deal. And like I said, viewing it as a soul contract, that's really shaped my views on not just like celibacy, but like relationships overall. I guess what I'm referring to is the idea of protecting your energy and saving it. Not like saving in the sense like saving your virginity, like, ew, that's such an outdated concept. Not in that sense, like you're only valuable if you're a virgin. Ugh, I'm not talking about that. What I mean is like protecting your energy, as in it's your own decision, and this doesn't really like increase or decrease your value, but it just has to do with you. If you're protecting your energy now, you have a lot more to give in your relationship when you actually do get into one. That's what I'm trying to get across. Hopefully I did. I remember I made a video on this old man who gave me some advice at the gym. So basically the old man told me not to get a boyfriend during college. I just found it really funny because I wasn't planning to, obviously, but I found it interesting how that idea was kind of reinforced to me in like a casual, spontaneous way. Like, I was not expecting him to say that to me. That was very random out of the blue. Like, it makes sense. Like, I am not the only one who thinks this way. And as I'm getting older and older, I'm beginning to realize that, yeah, actually, I think this is how I want to approach life, even though it can be hard sometimes. Like, it's not always easy, you know? Or it's not as easy as this video might make it come across, even though logically I know all the reasons as to why I'm practicing it. I'm a teenager. Like, yeah, it's not that simple. It's the uncertainty that kind of kills you. It's like you don't know, like, how long you're supposed to be in this period of your life, because there's no set age for when you're supposed to get into a relationship and supposed to get married and supposed to have kids. I mean, like, society has certain expectations, but you don't have to follow society. And so if you don't follow what society says, then when do you want to do it? Like, there's so many thoughts in my head all the time, and I just cannot stop them. Oh, that brings me to the standards part. I also thought I wasn't going to talk about the standards, but here we go. I don't believe this is a standard, but I just really do not agree with the idea of compromise. I've heard this word be thrown around so many times. Anytime you even begin the conversation about relationships or marriage, it's like, compromise, you need to compromise, you know? Especially for me growing up in a South Asian household. If you know anything about South Asia, if you know anything about Pakistan and how conventionally, stereotypically we're raised, you will know why so many of us dread the idea of marriage or dread the idea of just getting into a relationship, especially at this age, especially as a woman. I've never gotten my heart broken. I've never had to deal with a toxic relationship romantically. Instead, I've learned so much about relationships just through observation. It's actually crazy how much you can learn. When people say things like, oh, you have to compromise and you can't set your standards so high and you can't do this and you can't do that, and it's like, you're focusing on what you can't do. What about what you can do? Like, why are you imposing so many limitations on yourself? Also, I think when you don't have your heart broken yourself, you're approaching it from more of like a neutral standpoint. Your emotions are not tied up in it, and that is what enables you to be able to observe relationships so clearly that you can pick up on everything that's going right, everything that's going wrong, and like really learn from other people's relationship dynamics. As human beings, we go through so much change in life, like we're constantly evolving. So I'm just thinking, like, if you get into a relationship without even knowing what you want, like, how do you realistically know what you want at 19? You can. I also don't want to be one of those people that's like, oh, you don't know anything at 19 and you're too young for this. No, like, I think some people can definitely know, but it's like, I am incredibly indecisive. So if I decide I want something and then later I don't, that has real world implications. That has consequences. The consequences of the heart are not pretty to deal with. And then, of course, the dating part. I don't know about you, but I was never taught anything about this besides like no boys allowed, you know, ever. In Pakistani households, you go from not being allowed to even so much as glance in the direction of a guy to suddenly being expected to get married at XYZ age. And I'm already starting to, you know, get the proposal talks, and as I mentioned, okay. So then all those years of brainwashing me into thinking that I am not supposed to have any connection, any relationship, any conversation with a guy kind of backfired at this point, right? I've always been attracted to guys at least a few years older than me. Like when I was in grade 10, it was, you know, seniors in high school. When I was in grade 12, it was university students, college guys. But now that I am in college, it's like guys that have graduated are now working. My taste is always evolving, I guess. So I think that makes it kind of harder in a sense, because when I go to college, I'm not really interacting with anybody outside of my age group. And I guess I could do that through business or through just doing stuff outside of school, but who has the time and energy for that? And then also, again, like not being in the position or not being in the right state of mind for it. But yeah, okay. Anyways, in the meantime, I guess if you and I are in the same boat or in a similar boat, we can get our lives together as much as we possibly can and learn how to take care of ourselves so that that part of the equation can be eased a little bit. One thing that puts me at peace is like knowing that no one knows what they're doing. Like we're all living life for the very first time. The people around you who seem to have it figured out, or who really do have it figured out now, they too had to figure it out for the very first time, and yet they were able to do so. So you should be able to do so too. I don't know if this video was just a whole bunch of word vomit From now on, these are the types of videos I'm gonna do in addition to the Becoming Discomfortable podcast episodes, because I know that those are really helpful. Hopefully, I hope that they are helpful. I hope that they make an impact. These are kind of like sit down, chill conversations, like while you're drinking hot chocolate and watching a video before bed or whatever. Like, this is supposed to be really chill, laid back, relaxed, and I am trying to get over that too. Like I said, I'm somebody that like always likes to have control. I always like to script out everything. I don't think I'm even gonna edit these videos too much. Like, I want it to just be very raw on purpose. I used to think that I have no problem with opening up, and I still don't, to be honest. Like, the way I talk on camera is pretty much how I would like to think I talk in person with friends, with anyone really. I like being open about these things, or more difficult conversations. I love talking about that stuff more deeply and more openly. Just society could benefit from being a little bit more, I don't want to say authentic, because you can't really curate authenticity, but just being more open and not like keeping such a stone wall up every single time. Like, that's what I noticed again in college. Like, conversations are so incredibly surface level, and like, how are you supposed to connect with people when people don't open up? Like, I get it, I understand why they might not want to open up, dealing with childhood stuff myself, but like, at the same time, you know, we need to see more. And I'm really curious to know what you think about this, about practicing celibacy, not practicing celibacy. I just wanted to say, like, the financial and economic barriers that come with relationships, I think that we need to talk more about those, because I think a lot of people are going through it right now. I know I talked a lot about like the mentally, physically, emotionally, like getting ready for a relationship, but like financially too, you have to work so much on prepping for a relationship. I know people were like moving away because they just can't afford a house over here. It's just hard not to think about these things. Like, it might come across as overthinking, but when you have been affected by those problems like firsthand, you feel like you can never be too conscious and too safe. Always are like constantly thinking about the level of risk involved, because you know what it feels like. You've been affected by the consequences of it, right? I want this to be like a happy note. This is by no means me complaining about celibacy. What's there to complain about? This is literally such a privilege, I think, to be able to enjoying your single life. Oh yeah, like, I totally imagine myself as, if I don't get married, I want to totally be living like that single rich aunt lifestyle. Like, that is so appealing to me. I don't even like cats, okay? I don't want to be a cat woman, but I would be a cat woman. The single rich aunt lifestyle, like that, extremely appealing, which makes my decisions a little bit harder. Anyways, stay smart, hot, and know your worth. I will see you in the next shower thoughts and Becoming Discomfortable episodes. Peace.